All right, I'm here with Jared Robin, the co-founder of RevGenius, one of the biggest um, B2B revenue sales go-to-market community. You guys have over 50,000 members. I've seen you on LinkedIn around for a long time, so felt like you kind of were, I don't know if it's the early crowd, but like there was like a crowd during like the pandemic, like Chris Walker, Gaetano Di Nardi, and you were part of that crew too, where I feel like a lot of people got started and like I've seen a lot of your content. So yeah, I don't know. Thank you for joining. And
Thanks for
anything
having me.
high level people should know about you besides running RevGenius?
Yeah, I think I was part of the first crew after Justin Welsh. I think Justin Welsh
Mm.
like kind of laid the framework, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" And then he dropped a course, and I guess I'm the first group of people that did the course, and
Second generation.
went out right. But I and it's interesting how many brands have spurred from LinkedIn, um, personal brands, corporate brands, etc. I started because I needed to find a job.
Mm,
It was COVID and I had no job. But what ended up happening was I built a lot of really close relationships and friendships, from people I met in the comments. And at the time, people were going to way more digital events, obviously, than
yeah.
they are today. Like everyone was going to everything. So, like, it was way more social. And then parlayed that into Rev Genius and a community, and grew that fast because of the need for connecting.
Right.
One cool thing I've seen that I'm really intrigued with, and this will be great for the folks listening, is when people started posting on LinkedIn, what was like it was personal brand, personal brand, personal brand, and folks did that, and there was a lot of talk about, like, how that conflicted with your work, right?
Mm.
Because you were probably talking about something different. It's
Right.
not
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times, like, right? Like, you're an AE or an SDR, you're talking about how to be an AE or SDR, but you sell, um, widgets, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
the same.
Well, and I think a lot of people still associate personal branding about like talk about your personal life, like vacations you went on, how you think about work-life balance, your morning routine, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think in general, and that's spot on, it's something about you or what you could teach others that probably has nothing to do with where you work. So, like, what you were seeing, that combined with the great resignation, and it's like, "Oh, I could just fucking do the thing on my own." And some people were able to do the thing on their own, many not. But there's a lot of people, making the same income, some making more, doing a
Yeah.
personal brand. Now, an evolution has been made, like, within the last 12 months especially, where people are learning how to connect that with their company brand, and it starts, with the founder, with people in-house and things like that.
Yeah.
But now folks, are leveraging that same power to grow a business instead of a side business or a
Sure.
consulting or I don't wanna say consulting, like, a course or something like that, and there's no wrong way about either, but one might be more scalable.
Yeah. I mean, Adam Robinson probably the most poster child example of this right now on LinkedIn.
He's great. He's great,
Yeah.
and, as this conversation goes, like, we could break down exactly why he's great. Um,
Well,
and
let's do it right now. What do you think?
shout out to his awesome team. So first off, his team is bonkers good, right? Like, the COO, came from Apollo and some other places, but, essentially, the new evolution of building audience starts with founder evangelism.
Mhm.
What do I mean by that? The founder has to fucking talk. So somewhere publicly, ideally, social media gives you the biggest following, but you need to talk to somebody outside of yourself and your team. You have to. Okay. That and oh, I don't want to or whatever. let me make this crystal clear. This is the same analogy as founder-led sales. You don't want to sell? Fine, your company doesn't need to have sales, and you don't need to have employees, and you could work by yourself as a nonprofit. That is not a problem. That is your own prerogative if you don't wanna sell, okay? So now we're at a time where this differentiate it right, is like, not only do you not have to not only is there founder-led sales, but founder-led needs to be evangelism as well. Hey, great, you don't need to know how to develop anything, but you do need to speak. Now, what do you speak about? And this is a common thing, right? I was on with, like, a Series B founder interviewing her last Friday, and she's like, "Oh, my VC said, I need to do this personal brand thing," and the VC was right. The advice they gave her was okay. Talk about 3 lanes or whatever. Um, but I'll go one more than that. First off, you need a unique point of view, which is gonna match the brand's point of view. Does Adam Robinson have a unique point of view? Fuck yeah, that dude does,
Yeah.
right? Um,
I mean,
and
bootstrapping over VC comes to mind.
so that's one of the lanes, right? Also,
I mean, he has a point of
audience
view on like Sixth
audience led.
Sense and demand base being broken. That's essentially the point of view that started the company in a sense.
100%, and you need to pick a villain, and he's picked recognizable villains, which is, um I don't know if it's a potent strategy that could backfire, and you've seen him kind of, take a step back from that,
Sure.
right? Like,
Got
because of
sued by Sixth Sense.
or cease and desist, and
Right.
probably other reasons. Like, I think it has more staying power if you just build, like, status quo as the enemy
Mm.
versus somebody else. Apollo ZoomInfo comes to mind, right? Like, picking somebody else. So then you have a rallying call, and then, like, one of your lanes for content should be evangelizing the problem.
Right.
And you find some and I'll go back to the Salesforce example. Like, this is great. Like, they literally or we could look at Beehive right now, even better,
Mhm.
like, even more real time. You have Beehive, point of view for the creator, finally having a tool that's hella easier. You have um in the past, you had to build a whole company to run a newsletter. Now you could do it yourself. That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
They're kind of also parlaying on this owned media thing, yeah, owned media thing, like, the importance of owning a channel and the audience,
Yeah.
and that's super important. But then you also have what they do that I don't wanna call it meta, I'll just call it, like, really good, is, they have a few different ways that they broke this down further, but they have a social impact cause, which is like something in B2B SaaS for some fucking reason we can't get through our heads, like, how much of a like like an unlock this is.
Mm.
What did they do? They just announced that they're supporting independent journalists. It
Huh.
aligns with their product. They threw a fucking party in New York. They're making a big thing out of it. And guess what? All the indie journalists, which, if you know a thing or two about US at this time, right after the election, which was largely controlled by independent more than the media, and Beehive does this. It was this whole, like, synergistic flow and
Sure.
and unwind, and they're like, "We got you." Because the traditional media, whether you're left or right, is now coming under fire, and independent, like, has, like, their own point of view. So they tapped into culture with that, right? So they're solving a problem, they're evangelizing the problem, literally in some ways, and then, also, through these causes. And what they do so marvelously, going from Adam Robinson to them, and I think Beehive is just phenomenal.
Right.
They have, a community of people in their product, and that's the key. The difference between community to audience in my example is community is in your product, whether you're paid or not.
Mhm.
Audience are, people, in your content,
Mhm.
right? They're engaging with social posts. They're following your company on social. They might be subscribed for your newsletter. They might be in your podcast. So they have this. They have they have the Beehive audience and the Beehive social, and then you have uh, Jared, where's this founder evangelist thing? You have Tyler Denk with his own newsletter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big Desk Energy, and it's crushing it. And he has a Spotify thing where he hit like 10,000 followers on his Spotify playlist.
Interesting.
So like he's evangelizing this on his own, and he's taking Beehive ad dollars and getting more signups for his newsletter and figuring it out. And they have 2 different channels there. Not to mention now, um, Beehive is also phenomenal at people in the community, activating them to be champions of the product. How, how do you do that? Well, a low hanging fruit way, and Clay does this really well too, right? Of activating somebody in your product, whether they're active or not, but is when they post about your product. LinkedIn and Twitter seem to be the 2 networks for B2B.
Mm-hmm.
You make sure your whole team engages with that.
Right.
So like when you drop that Clay post, you're getting 30% more engagement. You get no dollars or anything. People fucking engagement is crack, everybody. That is enough of a non-monetary, flag. You know who else did that too? Chili Piper, Apollo. Should the list go on? Right? So I'm
Well, you
literally
first need
living
to get to a point
practical.
where people are tagging you and mentioning you on social posts as a company. I think most
Yep.
companies would dream about that, especially in a positive way. Um,
So it's it starts with putting your content out, attracting ICP persona into it by building the right content, and frankly, sometimes by reaching out to them and sharing it with them,
yeah.
and and then go from there. But yeah,
Yeah, I want to go back to something you said where, it's about developing a point of view and, Adam Robinson's point of view around um, person level identity versus, the establishment with Sixth Sense and demand base. And a lot of that sounds very similar to category creation, right? You gotta
yep,
figure out a new niche that's outside of how people currently view the landscape of products and position yourself as something different. And I think the pushback many people would have is that I'm not creating a new category. I'm an SEO agency. I'm building a CRM. And I guess what I would say to that is, well, i- if you're a founder and you started this, you probably have some way how you think about how your approach is different to what other people are doing. Right? If you created a CRM and there's already Salesforce and HubSpot, you probably felt like something about the way that they are is not ideal for a certain use case. And if you run an SEO agency, you hopefully have a unique approach to SEO, because otherwise you have a bigger problem if you're like, yeah, we just do the same thing as all the other SEO agencies. And so that's kind of like what you're saying is the natural first pillar to
you
the
have to have a
content
point of
strategy.
view. You don't have to necessarily build a category, but if I'm an SEO agency without a different point of view and I'm trying to get business, I'm playing that better game versus that different game, right, Finn? So I'm
Mm,
saying these are my G2 reviews. Look at me. This is my case studies. These are and as people are listening, they're like, "Oh shit." Like I'm checking off all that now. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying
yeah.
don't lead with that. You could always see somebody playing the better game versus different game, or who's the category king versus follower based on looking at their website. If their website has every single review platform and every award that they've won above the fold,
Mm,
like, okay. Like, you wanna see a fun example? Go to Deal's website, DEEL,
mhm.
go to Multiplier, go to Remote, go to all of that, and look at the first half of the page of all of them.
All right, let's do this live.
Let's do it live.
The
Deal's a fun one.
green
And then we could play that game in the CRM space too. So that's
screen window. There we go. Okay, so this is deal.
yep.
Shopify, Klarna, tax
Yeah,
for global teams. Okay, what's next?
remote.com.
Remote.com. Global
Okay, right
HR
there, fast
2024
fall leader.
fall leader.
Go down a little bit. A little bit more. Whoa, there we go. There they are.
Deal doesn't have that?
At the bottom, they finally just throw testimonials from G2.
Uh,
So they're not saying G2 whatever, they're just taking the testimonials from G2 as like, and then go to
I guess
multiply.
this kind of signifies deal is the default option, and then remote knows that essentially they need to be better than deal, right? Someone already knows about deal, and now they're starting to look at alternatives for deal, and so they're trying to
Yep.
say, well, but we have better reviews, and we're actually the mid-market leader in fall 2024, etc.
But the category king by averages will own 75% of the market. So you're
Sure.
saying I want to
Yeah.
compete first 25%. Now, if you're an SEO agency, do you honestly like how many people are you competing with for that 25%? And I don't know who the category king is in SEO or if it's just a commodity at this point, but there's a lot, yo. Like
I just did because we just did a post for a customer about that, and you can go through these examples where GitHub owns 60% of the market, GitLab owns 30% of the Git code hosting market. All the other solutions share the remaining 10%.
Mhm.
I think Coca-Cola has like 67% of the Coke market, the US Coke market. Pepsi has like whatever it is. And then I think all the other Coke brands have like share the remaining 3 or 6%, something like that. It's pretty crazy.
It's
It's
insane.
a winner take all effect, essentially. I mean,
Now,
especially if you're in the software space.
yeah, and so like it's to have a different point of view is epic, right? Like
Yeah.
it's really important, and, I think that I don't think that Jaguar created a category. We saw their release last week,
Mhm.
but they came out with a different, unique point of view, and that was essential. If they execute that or not, like, they have probably a 9-month window or 12-month max, before they become forgotten, and that's key too, right? Like, you need to have a product that's good, and you need to have a company that's good. If those 2 things aren't there, that category is done. What's the point of view that Jaguar has? Like, design is everything in this sea of sameness.
You
Tesla
have
hadn't
enough
changed their design in how many years, right?
Do you have any tips on how founders can identify their POV? Because I think
Yep.
it's often easier said than done, and there's probably a bunch of things that might be bouncing around their head. Um, any tips or ideas there?
Speak to prospective folks. Like first off, understand what everyone in the space is doing and understand why that's not solving a key challenge that's still out there that you want to solve and, figure out what that key challenge is, right? Like
Yeah,
SEO agencies are completely neglecting social SEO. I don't even know if that's a thing, but let's say it is,
right.
right? Like there's a way that your social posts can go up and let's just say that. Like with
Well, and you can
SEO.
rank on TikTok. I just heard it the other day on the bus. Some kid
So
said, "I Googled on TikTok."
dude, so like exactly, right? So like let's say like SEO agencies all focus on Google, right?
Yeah,
Like and how you
yeah,
rank on Google. But now you're like, fuck that. Like you're looking at the stats, like 90% of people are Amazon first or social first or whatever.
yeah,
I want to be the first the only SEO agency and hopefully the first. And I say hopefully the first because when you have others come in and do the same thing, that validates what you're doing to the extreme, right? Like you have RB2B, Warmly, Common Room, like all these people coming in, and now you have a category forming. So with the SEO example, I could be an SEO agency that just wants to do Google. I could take a step back and say, huh, what's the problem here? One, it's more competitive than ever. Two, do I think in 5 or 10 years, and I asked this question yesterday, what's going to be around in 10 years? Forget what's dead today. What's going to be around in 10 years? Is search going to be around in 10 years in the same way? And I'm looking at Perplexity, which is an
Mhm.
answer engine. I'm looking at AIs and I'm like, I think Google will be around in 10 years, but is their search going to be powered by the same algorithms? My answer is I don't know.
Yeah,
And I would make a bet that they're going to integrate Gemini better and it's going to be powered by a different way and we don't know. But what I do know is social is going to expand. I know social is gonna be around in some way, shape, or form. Now, what if I'm the only social first SEO agency? In a sea of sameness, everybody's reaching out. I could get you page 1 of Google, and I say, "Hey, Finn, I see you got 40,000 followers on LinkedIn. What if I told you I could make every one of your posts hit the feed for your target accounts?"
sure.
Okay, how? By doing like, wow. Now all of a sudden you're a partner solving this whole thing, and it's like, I got my secret sauce. It's this person. And then when somebody else catches when they're like, fuck, I gotta add this service to my SEO agency because I'm seeing where SEO is going. And
Yeah.
now you have a different point of view.
So I think it kind of comes down to like your point of view is not something you develop for your social media strategy. This is something that you develop for your company strategy.
Yes, sir.
And then you can evangelize that point of view on LinkedIn or in a newsletter or on YouTube or whatever. And if you don't know what your point of view is, then it really pays to figure it out because it's your company strategy.
Without a doubt. And I think that's the big unlock. And you can have a couple other point of views that coincide, like how Adam Robinson has Bootstrap. And what's
Right.
cool is when that point of view, that bootstrap point of view coincides, in a way where that actually connects with your ICP, right? Because they have a $99 a month product. That's phenomenal for bootstrap founders,
Right.
right? And they have all of this. So like he's intentionally picking that lane as well for audience building.
Yeah.
He's not just doing it because he likes it. I have no doubt he likes it. He's a smart guy. And he's actually connected with that journey, you could tell. But, he's also doing that to attract founders to get into his ecosystem, and he doubles down on that, um, by giving access to, like he's essentially helping people with audience-led growth. He's not calling it that yet, but you see how, like, my point of view is created and others are gonna, like was he first with it? Who knows?
Yeah.
Whoever frames it, names it, and claims it, owns it, and executes the fuck out of it, right? Like, that's the key.
Sure.
But, like, there are other people who came up with customer success before Gainsight.
Hmm.
I mean, it was a title at Salesforce, and we're talking categories now, but, like, point of views lead to categories.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that, but you need to be different than other SEO agencies. Otherwise, you might as well charge it's a race to the bottom price-wise. If you're the same,
Totally.
but you're better, it's price-wise and it's feature-wise.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you this question, and it's a tricky question on how to phrase it correctly, but you, I think you have roughly 45,000 followers on LinkedIn, a little bit above that. You're at 47,000 followers.
Mhm.
You have been at it for, let's say, 4 years, 5 years since the pandemic. Now, you don't go viral like Adam Robinson does, right? Like I see your posts regularly and you have really interesting opinions, but it's not that you regularly get 1,000 likes and 500 likes and all of
Right.
that. So, but yet you've stayed very, very, very consistent for a very long time. How would you frame the benefits of what's in it for you that even though, let's say, you don't see hyper growth and constant viral post, you still added putting out, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 posts every single week?
Yeah, so, because I, um, I can't post regularly and get 1,000 engagements, that might happen every 6 months, right? Um, my strategy and what I'm looking for has evolved around that, and what I mean by that is, that's why I became a community builder. What I wasn't good at, and I think my content is fairly decent, but for some reason, sometimes I think I was shadow banned on the network from trying to recruit too many people off, but
Mhm.
we're not gonna even if I was, right? Like, and I doubt that's the case, but regardless, I talk to literally so many people in my network every day and every week and bring them into the community and engage with them on so many levels that I took the hard way to do it. Like, I to build RevGenius, I literally would reach out to 300 people manually a day, asking them to join and asking how I could help them. Wasn't able to help every single one with every single thing, obviously, but built such strong relationships that I was able to build my brand in that way. So people listen even if the algorithm doesn't show me favor, whether I've earned that in poor content or
Sure.
some other reason outside of me. So what I get from that is tremendous relationships that
Mhm.
I've been able to scale somehow just by focusing on that.
Yep. You know, the pattern that I keep seeing with people who are successful with LinkedIn, social, is they focus on as cliche as that sounds, they focus on the people part rather than the number part. What I mean by that is, and I sometimes talk to these founders, they want to hit some arbitrary growth number. They're like, I have right now 2,000 followers. By the end of the next 6 months, I want to have 10,000 followers, and I want to get 100 likes per post, and I want to see that number increasing 20% month over month. Some arbitrarily randomly picked number. And if they don't see that trajectory or even close to that trajectory, they're like, this is not working. I'm not happy. It's underperforming. I'm going to cut this. While the people who made this successful to them in whatever way, they figured out that it's about the depth of relationship and not the number of likes and impressions on a post. And I was talking to Emir Atli, the co-founder and CRO at Hockey Stack, where I know you're an advisor at the company. He told me that for the first 4 to 6 months of him posting on LinkedIn, and he posted twice a day, so like 10 times a week, he had like 10 likes per post. No one
Yeah.
gave a shit. Most founders would look at this and they're like, it's not working. I'm not getting engagement. This is stupid. I'm going to quit. But what he did is he looked at these 10 likes as 10 individuals who are 10 people. And what he did every single time he got 10 likes is he would reach out to those 10 people one on one and said, hey, we're building this thing called Hockey Stack. We're not live yet, but I would love to have a 15-minute call and just show you what we're building and get your feedback. And he hopped on dozens and dozens and dozens of calls, got tons of feedback for the product, which definitely helped. And they got their first 10 users and paying customers through this exact process because eventually some of them said, oh, this is actually really cool. Can I buy this? And it sounds a little bit like you figured out that same thing, which is like it's not about hyper growth. It's not about hitting those, 100,000 followers like Adam Robinson did in the first 12 months or whatever. It's about realizing that each of these likes and comments is a real person. And you can take that additional step of actually building a relationship by reaching out to them, starting a conversation one on one, off LinkedIn, on a Zoom call, etc. Am I reading too much into this, or what's your
No,
reaction
it's
to this?
spot on, and when you gave the example, go from 2,000 to 10,000, in my head, I'm laughing, like, some people are trying to get there by dropping, like, the perfect piece of content with
Mhm.
regular cadence, And I laugh. I would say I try to get there by reaching out to the perfect people I want to follow me and say, "I've created something for you. What's
Yeah.
the best email to add? Or can you check this out?" And then figure out how many people I need to reach out to one to one to get those goals hit, right? So if I need to reach out to 100 people, when I started my newsletter, I I said I want to get my first 100 subscribers from my cell phone, meaning I'm going to text 100 plus people
Yeah.
to get my first 100 subscribers.
Yeah.
I want them to be the closest people to me because they're going to give me the realest feedback. They're also probably the highest likelihood to say yes.
Yeah.
And then from there, I said, great. I'm going to get my next 1,000 from my LinkedIn followers. If I have
Yeah.
to reach out to 10,000 people manually, I'm going to do it,
Yeah.
and then go from there. So like that's how um, not having the perfect post doesn't mean you can't hit those goals.
Yeah.
And I think thinking, which is insane that I haven't used automation for this. Um, but I think the people on the other hand, like even if I'm copying and pasting something,
Right.
in how fast I respond, that's the key, right? Because they'll be like, "Oh, this looks copy and paste," and they'll write something. If you respond right away, they'll be like, "Oh no, maybe it
Yeah.
wasn't copy to paste." It's all like that human connection
Sure.
is everything. And then when you hit 10,000, holy shit, you've probably spoken to 8,000 of them, and these are your army. That's crazy. So like when I look at as an advantage in stickiness
Yeah.
might be a disadvantage in time or ease to get there, but will build a stronger than ever brand. And Hockey Stack, the example you gave, and I love Amir. I just released his interview with me this last
Mm.
weekend. Um, he's that guy.
Yeah.
That's that company. And that's part of the true reason why they're getting so sticky.
Yeah. I think what you said is another. I feel like people sometimes think that it's an either or thing. It's you either do funnel-led sales or you do funnel-led marketing. You either do inbound or you do outbound, and people keep them separate. Where if when people start doing LinkedIn and they start posting, they want to see that inbound. They want to see people just see that content and then eventually come to the website and just sign up or just book the demo on their own inbound. Right. And then they have an outbound program where they build a list on Zoom Info and Apollo and they do cold emails, and then they're upset that they're not getting a lot of inbound from their content. They're upset that their response rates to their cold outbound are so bad, when in the reality, the right answer is to combine both, which is what you did, which is you do content so that you build a big audience of warm people,
Mhm.
and then you can still go outbound to these people. And yeah.
Here's the best part. When you have something so big, if it's so relevant and you've taken that time to curate it so it's not really outbound. It's kind of, who's engaged in there, who's ready
Mm.
to be to
It's
let me
inbound led
rephrase.
outbound.
It's not cold. So that category and that phrase um will have an ending point eventually, I promise.
How do you mean?
Inbound led outbound is just it's just directional. I don't know. It's I think it'll be
You're saying it's not gonna stick around.
right.
Yeah, I subscribe to that, I would say.
I don't see how it's gonna stick around, but I'm sure some people will fight that fight.
But yeah, the idea is warm outbound, and which, by the way, is also nothing new, right? Like, people always understood that there are certain people that you can reach out to which have a higher likelihood to respond to your message, and that's signals, right? And those signals can be they just started at a new company, or the company is running some initiative that you can see publicly. And another such signals is they engaged with your content and they liked it and they commented, and that's a signal. And that person's probably more warm and they probably have a higher response rate and meeting booking rate or whatever goal you're trying to drive, if you
Finn, like, I kid you not, 3, 4 years ago, before creating content on LinkedIn or regularly or whatever, I had this play where I would literally people that viewed my profile, the most lowest intent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it would be as simple as me viewing their profile and them viewing it back.
Right.
Before I created content, I would send them a note with a deer gif, like peeking out and saying like, "Hey, saw you view my profile. Did I do something wrong?"
Oh, that's brilliant.
I
I might
converted
feel that.
Morgan Ingram took it from me and he's like, "Oh, Jared, last day I booked 3 meetings from that." Boom.
That's brilliant.
And that's such low intent. Now, if you're creating real content, you're like, come on, man. This is here for the taking.
Yeah, I love it.
That's just me view a profile and somebody viewing me and taking a guess. And the best part is they'll write back.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, "Oh, no, I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong. I was actually just checking out RevGenius."
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Does it make sense to set up time to so that we can talk face to face instead of weirdos behind each other's back? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. No, that did I do something wrong is I want to steal that line. I'm going to try that. I'm also going to try that for like our B2B website visitors. Um,
Yeah,
see what.
no. So if you wanna take it to our B2B website visitors, say this: "So you visit my site, um, but not fill out a lead request. Did I do something wrong?"
I'm gonna
Right?
get that one too.
Isn't that
Um,
funny? Like,
yeah,
why not?
yeah. Now when you think about audience-led growth, or to simplify it, founders evangelizing their point of view
Well,
through
that's a starting
content.
point, right? Because then it evolves to getting your
Yeah.
whole team on and getting, champions and stuff. I'm just saying, like, the low-hanging fruit, founders just started.
What do you think is like the 101 stack? Is it just start with LinkedIn and then add a newsletter, or like how what's the first step? What's the second step?
Yeah, so you're probably gonna start on, a network where your people are,
Yeah,
for B2B, LinkedIn or Twitter. Start there, build it up. Do you add a newsletter, so, like, there's, like, 3 main thing or 4 main things you can add, an event, whether it's in person or online, I counted that as
sure.
2, newsletter or a podcast, and podcast, newsletter are probably, like, the regular ones that are, like, the lowest hanging. Um, pick which is feasible, and then but, like, when you do that, make sure that your point of view is coming through. And that there's a gap there that you're solving still, right? Like, don't just use that to feature dump. Like
Yeah,
like, what audience-led growth, the output of it does is it builds your fucking movement.
yeah,
Movement. It builds your movement because you want everyone coming on that hockey stack movement, RevGenius movement. Like, you don't just want people, buying from you. Yes, you definitely want that. But, like, you want them sharing why they bought from you. You want them hooting and hollering, saying how awesome you are. You want them telling their friends. You wanna turn everybody into a force multiplier, and you do that with a movement, right? Like solving a problem. And if you go to, like, some of the social issues and social movements, you can clearly see it. Black Lives Matter, Million Man March, the Women's Parade, like, all of this stuff. Did they just march because they're, like, pro something? Sometimes, unfortunately, but, like, more often than not, it's because there's an injustice, a gap, something important that they wanna round folks up to solve together,
sure.
and that draws the people, and then what they're donating, they're sharing, they're doing all this stuff. Well, if you're solving that gap, like, that means that much to them, and you're facilitating this type of thing for them, they'll join your movement.
So let's say a founder listens to that and they're like, okay, I like this. I'm bought in. I like what you're doing on LinkedIn. I like what Adam Robinson does on LinkedIn. I'm going to pick LinkedIn.
Sure.
Um, what do you think is a good like, what would you tell them on how to start? Like, how often should they post? What timeline should they have in mind? How much time should they dedicate to this? Like, what's a good way to get this rolling?
Um, do the easiest things, like, just go. Do 30 days in a row. I promise if you post horse shit for 30 days, um, not only will you get better, but you probably will get eyes
Mm,
stuff. And, like, I run this group for fun, like Audience 30, which started as Video 30. I have people telling me in the last 90 days they've gotten more views than the last year,
mm,
before. And I'm talking like 6 million, not like 60,000, right?
yeah,
Like real hefty numbers. And they were comparing it versus seven-figure numbers, even still. So if that's what happens when you have that, like that, imagine if you have nothings. Just
yeah.
fucking do the thing. And that's advice I'd give to founders with anything. Like, oh man, slight tangent. A founder came to me and said, "Do you have somebody that could sell my product for me?" I said, "Probably." Like, how many clients do you have? He goes, "Just one. Let's talk about it." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do you a favor. Let's hop and talk about it." It turns out that the one client was the company he works for. And I'm like, "You don't have one other client? So if you can't sell the thing, how is anybody?" "I
Right.
don't know how to do it." "Do the fucking thing." I said, "I'm not gonna give you anybody to build your business for you." I said, "If you don't do the thing, I am 100% certain the next time you hit me up," because 6 months have passed after I told him to do the thing. I said, "What improvement have you done?" He said, "0." I said, "Did you do the thing?" He said, "No, I didn't do the thing." Fucking kidding me? Motherfucker, like, don't waste my time.
But let
So the
okay, but
answer is, man, just
yeah.
just go, pick
But for
pick
how
a
long?
gap.
So, like, let's say, okay, 30 days every day you do it. What should you keep going? What if you get 10 likes at
So
that
what's
point?
what's your other option that
Mm,
you're gonna pivot to? Like you're saying, I would rather should I prioritize this over something else? And at what point do I switch? I'm
mhm.
here to tell you, if you don't build something on social, every one of your competitors will. Like what are you gonna do? You're gonna invest in paid ads, you're gonna build your brand on paid, get the fuck out of here. You're gonna build it on paying influencers. Is that your so you could pay
Cold
influencers.
outbound, doing more cold emails.
So you should do more cold emails. So in the hour a day it takes to post on social,
Mhm.
if you devote that time to sending more emails, is that gonna be, more beneficial? I mean, I guess it depends the stage of the company you're at. If you're getting your first clients, you need to get your first clients, and you should be reaching out to everybody to do that. But if you have your first clients and you're looking to go from there to the next thing, I think that it's the right time spent, and I would keep doing it until it worked.
Well, what if you're CEO of a company that's doing 5 million a year? You're super, super busy. I mean, you have a sales team at this point, you have a marketing team at this point, customer success, you're stretched thin in all kinds of directions. You might need to fundraise again. You could spend more time on product. You could spend more time hiring another SDR. Spending 1 hour a day when you have, let's say, 8 hours, that's a lot of time. And then doing that for a month and you get 10 likes, that's a tough proposition for such a busy founder to just keep going.
If you're that busy, you think you're working 8 hours, Finn, be real. First thing, okay? Be
Yes.
very real. Do it at 10 PM, whatever. Hire somebody like Alec Paul,
Mhm.
who's worked with Sam Jacobs, who's worked with,
Adam
Adam
Robinson.
Robinson, right?
But he only does coaching, so you still got to do the writing.
Fine, great, awesome, even better. So if you're gonna fundraise, is it easier to fundraise with a bigger audience or the exact same audience? And let's say you switching that off will help you get to $1 million more in revenue before you fundraise. That's
Mhm.
really positive. is that going to net you out a better chance to get funding, or is a much bigger audience going to do it? I mean, people want to see the moat, they want to see the profitability and all of that, and I think prioritizing audience is big. But to your point, you don't have to do founder led sales, right? You don't have to do this. You don't have to.
Yep.
So if you got to 5 million as is, I mean, look, Sam Jacobs is a great example. I believe he got to like 10 million as is, and then he turned that up, and it transformed his business and built a moat with Pavilion.
Mm. Yeah. It is I see it as I think the reason why it's even more of a moat now than it used to be is because with if you're in the software space, with all these AI tools, it's become so easy and fast to copy features. So this idea that you can just have a 10x feature that differentiates your product is just not realistic anymore. Having an audience and attention is a moat because it's a limited resource. We all only have 24 hours in a day. 8 of those we're sleeping. And so if someone's consuming your content, that means they can't consume someone else's content at the same time. And so if you have an engaged audience that shows up every day and every week to read your posts, to read your newsletter, to attend your shows, at that time they literally cannot be paying attention to a competitor or anyone else. So if you have a bigger audience and better distribution, that is a moat.
I mean, look at the presidential election, who went on podcasts with the
Sure.
more audience, and they could have spent their time writing better policy. God knows they could have, right? Doing all this other stuff.
Plus,
What
I think
matters.
I think the and this is not to say who should have won or should have not won, but the Democrats had a much larger budget.
3 times.
Yeah,
3 times, right? So it's, let's go back, let's put that through my game plan. Unique point of view, find a problem. The problem that they found was what? It was the deep state, like everything doing it the old way, the other people doing that. Create a solution called MAGA, right? Make America Great Again.
sure.
Rally the fucking people. Have you ever seen anybody rally like that, Fen?
I've not attended. I've not seen those rallies. I've
I've
not seen
just
those videos either. But
I've I see flags up everywhere. Like,
mm,
who the f like it's a sports team,
sure.
and then amplify that through many, many channels.
Yeah.
Like bigger audiences leveraging other bigger audiences, that's another thing. So if you have your SEO agency and you're competing against another SEO agency, first off, you win by price, you lose by price. We know that. You win by features, you lose by features. We're learning that.
Hmm.
Okay, that's the same thing. That's the better game. If do you want to spend your time to get 1 million more in I mean, assuming that both options you stay in business, right? Like, and you have the same resources. If your competitor, if you found out that they're putting all their time into building audience and you're putting all your time into outbound,
Mm,
which theoretically could work against it, right? Because everything is cold outbound, let's say.
yeah.
Who would you bet on in a year, assuming that the product was the same, the team was the same, everything else
I
was
think
the
that
same?
the crazier thing is almost that, and that kind of shit. Like in a year, I'm not even sure, but in 5 years, I'm very confident who will win, which
Yeah.
is the one investing into content because the difference is it compounds,
Yeah.
while code outbounds just flattens. What's the word?
It actually has diminishing returns
Diminishing. Yeah,
because yeah, it doesn't even flatten. And I think and Adam Robinson does mass cold outbounds, and he has some great people. Shout out Taylor Heron, who handles it for him. But a big reason why that hits is because of the brand he's built and all of that. It hits at a higher percentage as well. So
sure,
keep that in mind.
sure.
Anyway,
Jared, any last thoughts on audience-led growth? I mean, we covered some. I'm sure there's a ton more to discover. Obviously, I'll link
yeah.
you, your LinkedIn profile. down in the show notes. But any last nugget here that we didn't cover that we should have covered?
No, I just, sign up for the newsletter, audiencehouse.com.
It's yeah, audiencehouse.com. The fastest growing startups read Audience House to learn how to build their audience-led growth movements. There you go. Cool, Jared. Thank you for joining. This was fun.
Finn, this has been an honor, man. This is great, getting to hang with you.
Cool.